Hello everybody, I'm making this tutorial to kind of show off some of the features of Zotero. I showed it to some people last semester and it seemed a little overwhelming, so I decided I'd make a brief tutorial. Also, it's the first time I've made any kind of video like this, so please bear with me. First things first, you're going to want to go to the URL on the screen and download the application. From there, you're going to want to go to zotfile.com, and it looks like this. And you're going to want to download that application. This file, from here you might want to take a moment and actually read some stuff on the page. It does a lot of really interesting stuff. But you're going to want to install that, and to do that you go to Zotero, and then you're going to, oh actually no, not like this. You go to Zotero, and then you're going to click on Tools, Add-ons, and then you're going to click on this little gear icon and say Add from File. Go to where you downloaded it to and just double click that. And from here, I want to show you some of the settings that you need to set up. You're going to want to go to Preferences. You go to Zotero, Preferences, and then you're going to want to make sure the open PDFs using Zotero is selected. And that allows PDFs to open within Zotero rather than Acrobat or whatever application you happen to be using. Now you want to add a PDF, just drop it into your library. And you can see that it already added from some metadata that I had saved. So it says the author name and everything in the side. On my sociology book, if you look at information, here where it says more info, you can see that it doesn't have author information or anything. So it's going to treat it differently when I drop that into Zotero. Oh, that failed. So when I add that, you can see that it doesn't have any kind of little arrow next to it. And if you say retrieve metadata, it's going to say it can't. It can't recognize what metadata to draw from. So you can open the file and just search for an ISBN, and then you can copy that number, and you can actually, I'll show you, paste it into, you right click, you go to create parent item, and you can paste an ISBN and it will generate all of that information for you. It's also handy, which I'll show you later. You can find an ISBN or any kind of data for basically anything online just by searching it on Google. And from here I want to show you some of the functionality. Like I'll go later in the book, random page 500. This shows your annotations. At top it shows your tools, and this shows notes and stuff. So you can actually, that only becomes so small, that sidebar, and then the one that shows your annotations on the left, that can actually shrink a little bit and it'll give you a larger read area to work with. Now from here you're going to want to make a note attached to the item, and you do that by clicking this plus over here. You say add note, and you can title it whatever you want, and that's how it'll show up basically in anything. Just what you type in the first line, it just put basically anything. You can highlight text and just add it to a note, or you can actually highlight to annotate it using different colors. You can do that by, that menu just pops up. It shows on the left what your annotations are, and you can click them and add them to note. You can right click them and add them to note. And you can also use the annotations in your notes to actually find what you're looking for. You can just click them in any part of the text, and then you can say find in page, show on page, and it just takes you right to it. That's incredibly helpful if you're an avid note taker. And you can also click this at the top and it'll automatically highlight without having to use that menu. And you can play with colors, like if you want to say highlight, you can right click from there and you can tell it to like change to any color on this list. The colors are kind of limited, but I like to highlight names in green like anytime I see them, and it becomes helpful using the menu on the left if I just want to find a person that I'm talking about. And you can also use these colors at the bottom here to cycle through any kind of, specific annotation color that you'd like to find notes for. Some of these other tools at the top here, like you can add a sticky note, you can just like throw one down, whatever, click that to add text to it. You can delete annotations by just selecting them and pressing delete. This selection tool, you can actually create a box around something like an image, and then you can right click it and say add to notes. And that's pretty helpful for a lot of reasons later on, but just in general, if you need a graphic from your textbook, and you can also add an annotation, and then you can drag it anywhere you want to on your notes. And it's also worth noting that notes will drop wherever your cursor is placed, by the way. I'm going to rename this for now just to make it easier for what I'm going to show you next. It's also, you can make actual notes in your file, your notes file. So, just put reference information, and then you can, make it bold. You can add highlight to it using the tools at the top of the section there. And a lot of that stuff comes in handy later. I mean, if you're a person that uses color and text style to help stuff stand out, I mean, for me, that's really helpful because I get a little bit lost if I'm just staring at a sea of text. So I'm just going to throw some color on here. So now I'm going to show you how to use the connector with Google Docs. I mean, first thing you're going to want to do is actually install the connector. And that's not difficult. You want to go to extensions, your browser extensions. I use Brave browser, but it's basically the same for Chrome. Those are mostly the two that I'm familiar with, but go to the web store and then just search for Zotero connector. And install that. And then you're going to want to switch back to Google Docs. You can see the extension is there. So you can see that it's actually not present yet at the top. But if you quit out and then relaunch your browser, you'll see this new menu option, Zotero. You can say like add a citation, and you select your source. So for me, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna go, you wanna switch back to Zotero if that menu pops up, and I'm gonna use ASA, American Sociological Association Standard Style. And you can see how many citation methods there are actually available. But it'll ask you what book you want to cite, and I'm just going to type Conley, my sociology textbook author. And you hit that, and you'll see it places a citation in your Google Doc. And now if you want to, say, bring your notes in, the notes that I just made from that book, and here I'm going to actually not edit this out because it can get a little bit sort of frustrating. Like, it doesn't always work right away, but if you just go back and, say add note, and then you see test notes, the file I just made. And it can take a second to load sometimes, but once it does, you can see over here, it left all of our annotations, it brought the snippet image from the book, and it also, like if you look at the citation style, it's now an ASA, whereas if you look at it in our notes, it's in a standard Zotero format. So if you choose MLA or something like that, it's going to show up in your doc in MLA format. which is incredibly helpful if you're, using a lot of citations from different books, different sources. But Zotero Connector itself has some other pretty excellent functionality. Like if you go to a given site and you just click on the extension in the browser, it saves it. So you can switch back to Zotero and go to my library, and you can see that it saved this Zotero downloads page entry. That functionality is a whole lot cooler if, say, you're looking at an article. So this random article that I pulled up, right? So if I click that Zotero connector button again, it saves it as the article title. And if you switch back to Zotero, you can see that it actually saved all of the author information and everything, the date of publication. You want to be careful when using this too, because it's not always 100% accurate. But if you open it from there, it opens the snapshot, so it saves an image of the site on your computer. So you don't need internet access to be able to re-access a website if you save it into Zotero. Another really awesome function is you can create a bibliography from, say, so tell it to create a bibliography, and then you're going to go and create a references page. References in ASA format, but works cited in MLA or, depending on whatever language you're using. And then paste. Oh, that's the ISBN still. So I made a mistake when I was doing this. So you can save it as an RTF, like a text file, or you can say, like at the bottom here, you can say copy to clipboard, right? So all those three sources that I selected, copy to clipboard, and then when I paste them here, they're already indented. Although it does do some interesting stuff with the way it's indented. Like it's not always going to be perfectly aligned to the left and 1.5 inch in, so be mindful of whatever format your professor is expecting. So I'll just show you just another example. Like you can also, like, say you don't want to go in and click the button in the extension. It works with a shortcut. Like if I'll open another random article. If you just hit Command-Shift-S, it will automatically save whatever given site you're on to Zotero. Oh, see, it saved it, new author, new title, everything. Yeah. Another thing you're going to want to do, at least what I like to do, is keep everything super organized. So if you have stuff like various articles, just make a collection called articles. And then you can go back to your main library and you can move, just say, those 2 slate articles into that folder. And I'll make like another one and call it like sociology, so I can keep all of my different readings for a given class in a specific folder. And then move that textbook, right? And then if you look at my library, it'll show you everything. But if you click on unfiled items, you can see just what hasn't been sorted yet. Also, if you look at these files, like if you collapse that, you can see this notes that are tied to a specific item, which is pretty helpful. That's the PDF and the note file that I made. And this is what it looks like after you've spent the whole semester using it. So this is that same textbook. And these are all the notes that I've made for that over the course of this last semester. And you can kind of see how I used different colors for different reasons. Like I used blue for all the definitions on the side and also for names of books within the text. And I used green for the names and stuff, as I said earlier in the video. Also, I created this table of contents file, and I made one for each of my textbooks to just annotate the beginning of each chapter, and then in one of my books I actually put the conclusion to help me, you know, if I needed to get to the end of a specific chapter. And you can see, like, if you just want to sort by green annotations, you can find specific names. Obviously, find your own color coding convention. I use different ones for different books. I'll show you another book, but while I do, I should also mention I showed you Zotero for Docs, Google Docs, but it also has a connector for Microsoft Word and like LibreText. If you use that, there are connectors that'll work basically the same as it does for Google Docs. Like, this is my Geo book, so I used, you know, different conventions or color conventions for stuff because he gave us specific guides, and it helped to have specific coding for the things that go into the guide. And, you know, for names I still used green. And I also used the, you know, images, like different maps and stuff that were going to come in handy, and it made it useful that I could still, you know, find the page to get all the information and background on it and whatnot. But one of the coolest things, well, maybe not the coolest, but like if you have different sources in a single notes file, like this, I used the trafficking in persons report. You can click on it in the notes file even if it's not open, and it'll just take you right to that file. And that was incredibly helpful when I was writing essays with a bunch of different sources and stuff. So yeah, a couple of other things I wanted to add. This tutorial turned out to be longer than expected, but it really just scratches the surface of the potential of this software. You can also create library account and sync it between devices, so you can switch between your computer and a tablet if you want to annotate with your finger with a stylus or something like that. It's pretty seamless. I also wanted to say thanks so much to the development team for making this incredible study utility. It's been a game changer for me. And please comment or contact me with feedback if you have any. Let me know if it was helpful or if there are things that I need to change, if it was totally boring. Please let me know. I'd love to have some tips for videos in the future if I decide to make more. Also, thank you so much if you sat through the entire video, and take care.